All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Today's presentation is the race for sponsorship. I see several familiar faces and a lot of new people. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Alex Streiler. I've been in the field of sponsorships for, I think, 24 years now. It started when I left a career in investment banking and started a small action sports company called Bocusmo. That was in 1998. From 1998 through 2003, I actually issued sponsorships. We had desert racers, we had motocrossers, skateboarders, surfers. So from a business perspective, I learned early on what brands and companies want. Stephen, how are you? What brands want from sponsorship. Because we needed the visibility, we needed the activation, we needed brand ambassadors to spread the word. So I learned from a business perspective what sponsorships were about. I then had the opportunity to go over to an action sports brand, Osiris Shoes. I became the president of Osiris for a couple of years. And at Osiris, we had an entire team of X Games athletes, BMXers, freestyle motocrossers, drifters, rally racers. And again, we had a lot of racers, so I understood from the business perspective what sponsorships are about. Then a friend of mine called in 2005, and a college buddy, someone I went to college with for several years, and he said, "Hey Alex, I just started this thing called," he was hired by Jim Baldwin to start championship off-road racing on the West Coast. And CORE was an off-road racing series that was very popular in the Midwest and doing extremely well, but it didn't have a lot of West Coast presence, so Piero said, "Man, we need people to come grow this," and it was a good opportunity for me to get out of skateboarding and tennis shoes and come into motorsports. I think that year Dale Earnhardt Jr. made $25 million, which was about the total sales of Osiris at that time. So when one racer can make as much money as an entire company with 38 employees and 30 brand ambassadors, I realized, this might be a good jump. And if somebody can make $25 million, mostly from sponsorships, it was something I was interested in. So my role at CORE was to raise the money. And the money I raised helped put us on NBC Sports. It was already on Speed Channel. That's back when there still was a Speed. I'm glad Speed Sports coming back. I heard the announcement yesterday. And it didn't last very long. Jim Baldwin was funded by Lehman Brothers in 2008. We had the financial crisis, and because CORE's line of credit was with Lehman Brothers, when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, we lost the line of credit, and CORE evaporated. So then I went and I joined Lucas Oil. For those of you who don't know, Lucas Oil at the time, it's changed since then, but at the time it had owned or operated 8 different racing series, over 400 events a year, from dirt late model to sprint cars, everything from off-road to drag boats and pro pulling. And it was my job as part of the Team Lucas program to raise money for all of those properties. And so now I started selling sponsorships. And over the years, we sold millions of dollars of sponsorships. And as I'm selling the sponsorships, I learned, because Lucas Oil also sponsored a lot of racers, and many racers would send marketing material, index, and proposals to Lucas for sponsorship. And 99% of all the marketing material that we got was the same. If you give me money or product, I'll give you exposure. And there's 3 levels, A, B, and C, gold, silver, bronze. And that's not how Lucas issued money. That's not how we do it. That's not how I raised money. So then I wrote a book. I'll get to that in a second, but after Lucas Oil, and in 2020, we had COVID, so there was nothing to sell. Events stopped. So I took my business online, and instead of selling sponsorships, I started educating racers on how to raise money from sponsorships. How did you do it? What were the secrets? What were the tricks? What did I learn along the way? And I put them into courses and lessons, and I'm not really good online yet, so this is all new to me, but I created a Meet the Sponsors webinars where I interview brand managers of what do they look for when they issue a sponsorship. So you hear it from the marketing directors and the sponsorship decision makers of these companies, exactly what it is that you have to do to get their attention to get money from them. So started doing that, and that led to earlier this year doing my very first online motorsports sponsorship summit. It was very interesting, had about 20 or so professionals, all in their words, describing what to do to raise money. And then that did well, so we did a motocross summit a couple months ago, and next month there'll be another motorsports summit. But to go back, I learned a lot. And what I learned was when racers call all the time asking, what do I do for sponsorship? You can't make those phone calls and take 600 phone calls a year, so I wrote a book. I wrote a couple books over the years. After Osiris, I wrote Explanation of Action Sports, which is how the action sports market works, marketing and sponsorships. And then more recently, Motorsports Marketing and Sponsorships. It's a book that has, I guess, 15 chapters, which these were the tactics and the methods that I used not only to raise money, but that I learned that when I would raise the money, Tom Bogner would issue it. So the money I raised, Tom Bogner at Lucas Oil would spend it, and these were the things that he would look for. So we put it in writing to teach racers. Today I'm going to cover a few chapters of that book. If anybody doesn't have a copy or would like more detail, my son is over here. His college fund, he gets 100% of the proceeds. I told him if he comes to Indy with me, I'll let him keep that. So today we're going to talk about the race for sponsorship. Because it is. There's 400,000 racers in this world, and every single one of them is looking for money. You're not alone when you're looking for money. Everybody in this room who's a racer is looking for money. So what are you going to do to set yourself apart? Today I'm going to teach you some tricks, some tools, some tactics that worked for me. You can adapt them to yourself. But these are things that have raised me, or for the companies I worked for, literally probably upwards of over $100 million over the past 18, 19 years. We're going to talk about why do brands sponsor and what do they want. We're going to talk about decks, proposals, and proof of performance report. Those are the three most important tools for raising money. Your deck, your proposal, and your pop report. And a lot of people get them mixed up. A lot of people don't even know what a pop report is, and they think a deck and a proposal are the same thing. So they treat them as the same thing. 20 years ago, the winner got all the exposure. If you won a race, you would be in the media. And the media clearly is where the photos and the television coverage came from. Sometimes radio coverage, but it's mostly TV and magazines is why brands were sponsoring, because they wanted to see their logo in print and in the media. 10 years ago, it was all about reach. You know, who can we reach? Who has the most impressions, the maximum followers? Today, those are irrelevant. Today, it's about value. What can you do to create value for a brand who probably has the same reach and the same exposure or more so than you do? So a lot has changed since COVID. Just in the past couple of years, sponsorship has changed. I don't know if you guys can feel it yet or if you noticed it, but you will feel it. It's not the same asking for money today as it was just a few years ago. But I'm going to tell you today how to do it. It's not that hard. The key is the word value. You have to know what companies value. Companies, it's kind of obvious if you think about it. When you're in business, you want growth, you want customers, you want repeat sales, you want stability, and you want respect for your brand. But how many of you are selling that when you approach a sponsorship? Are you selling growth? Are you selling customers? Are you selling repeat sales or respect? Or are you trying to sell your race program? What are you offering? Most of the decks that I've seen don't offer any of these. You know what they offer? Is exposure. If you have the word exposure in your deck, get rid of it. It's going to go in the trash can. Sponsors don't need exposure. Coca-Cola doesn't need exposure. Monster Energy doesn't need exposure. They need a lot of things, but not exposure. And if you learn what they need, then when you present them with the deck, at least you'll get their attention. It doesn't mean they're going to give you money. There are a lot of people sending information out, but if you can show them something that has more relevance to their business, then they're going to look at it as opposed to throw it at the trash can. So the value companies get depends on the type of company. Companies are all different. Even companies within the same industry are different. So not all companies value the same things. A service provider is very different from a retailer, very different from a technology company, very different from a manufacturer. Endemic brands like Ford, Chevy, parts companies, motorsports industry, very different from your non-endemics. The beverage companies, the food companies, the apparel, clothing companies, fashion companies. You know, your beverage sponsor didn't help you win the race, but your tire company might have. So they have different sets of values. And knowing that these companies are different, that's how you approach them in your search for sponsorship. Young companies, mature companies, very different things you offer them. Small or large, whether it's a startup or Fortune 500, value sets are different. I'm going to start with service providers. Geico. Geico was a big sponsor of Lucas Oil, several $1 million a year. You know, if you think about it, insurance is not something we want to buy. Who here wants to buy insurance? Who here wants to replace a flat tire? These are distressed purchases, or they're mandatory purchases. You're required to. So these companies aren't trying to show you how much you need their product. They're trying to make their product fun and exciting. It's service providers like the law firms and insurance companies, they're trying to explain benefits and offerings. What they're looking for are impressions. Geico, you see it everywhere. Why? Because when you do have to go buy insurance, they want to be first on your mind. And this is what you want to show when you're showing value. When you're showing value in a deck, and when you're offering value in a proposal, you're going to show different value for a service provider than you're going to show a manufacturer. Service providers, especially ones like Geico, want to make the brand fun. Again, they're not selling insurance, they're selling a savings, a 15%. And they're trying to make it themselves memorable and engaging. They also want leads. Leads are very important to service providers because they want to, obviously that's how they grow, that's the sales, this is the business that we talked about earlier. They want to show third-party endorsements because if this person is using the product, well, I trust their judgment to do due diligence, therefore I can use it too. So if you're the racer and you're that third party offering the endorsement, that potentially could get more customers for service provider, and that's good for them. They want you to remember them. That way, when it's time, or they also want you to tell your friends, so when it's time for their friends to use the service, they'll be first on the mind and you're going to recommend them. Retail stores, totally different value sets from a service provider. You don't send the same material to a retail store that you will a service provider. A retail store, they obviously want foot traffic. They want you to go into their store. They want you to go onto their website. So they have to explain hours and locations. They want to explain why you go to their store versus the other 3 stores just like them because they have exclusive products or they have exclusive deals. And if you can show that in your marketing material to a retail store, that this is what you're going to do on their behalf as you are an extension of their marketing arm, well, guess what? That's how you show value. Retail stores, they also like to give out coupons. They like to create cross promotions with the brands that they sell, the vendors in the store. They like, obviously I said earlier, the exclusivity. You wonder why there's an AutoZone, a Napa, O'Reilly, back in the day, Kragen, Checkers, they all right next to each other. Well, they're all slightly different. And so when you're promoting a retail store, you're promoting why they're different and what makes them better or different from their competitors. Technology companies want to show the benefits to potential buyers and explain their technological innovations. They want to describe new features. When Roger Browning ran the program for Hewlett-Packard, probably about a decade ago, we were at the Long Beach Grand Prix, and he told me that, because I said, why is HP spending so much money on IndyCar? They had the IndyCar program. He says, Alex, all I need is one buyer to come in and buy 100,000 units for their big company, and this whole thing is worth it. And I said, has it ever been done? He goes, yeah, that's why we're still here. So it's not about selling to everybody who sees the logo on the car. It's about putting that one buyer of a major company into the hospitality or into the pits, or letting them sit on the box, or letting them come back and meet the team. And then that buyer has such a great time. It's like, wow, they love HP. When they go to make a purchasing decision, now Hewlett-Packard is first on their mind because they made it fun. So technology companies have a completely different value set. They also want to describe features, obviously, and then support distribution channels, which are usually the retail stores or the outlets where you can buy them. Tool and equipment companies, I'm pretty sure this was a photo I took at Supercross maybe 10 years ago when Makita was activating at Supercross. I thought it was pretty cool. You could try out all of their new hand tools at the time, power tools, and they had pieces of wood you could drill, you could saw, you could cut. And it was fun. It was like, now I have a whole set of Makita in my garage. I really do. And so hand tools, power tools, welders, they want to showcase their product to do-it-yourselfers. Who is their customer? Their customer is not my mom. Their customer's a construction worker, a mechanic. Their customer is me. So they go to the events where I would go, and they want to showcase the products in a way I would use them. If you are a racer and you're going to an event and you have an audience, fans, spectators, who would potentially use power tools, well, guess what? You're probably a really good conduit for that power tool company to reach those people if you can offer coupons or build relationships, or if you can drive traffic to a retail store that carries that product. Makita sold in Home Depot, so if there's a cross promotion where you can sign autographs in front of a Home Depot store and you have Makita tools, well, guess what? Makita will sell those through Home Depot while you're there. You can be that person to help them. That's sort of how you have to think when you're approaching sponsorships. A lot of these tool companies also want to convert customers away from competitors, because that's just what this business is all about, is take from here, give to there. Endemic brands, these are the ones who are in the industry, aftermarket parts, oil, filters, tires, wheels. Obviously, they want to sell to enthusiasts. They want to prove functionality. They want to show their product on the winner's circle. They want to be part of the champions winning race team because, hey, if it's good enough for this champion, it's good enough for me. And that's how they market. They want to align with professionals, and sometimes they also want to piggyback your media, because if you're winning races or if you're going to races and you're doing really well and you have a good audience, then as you're showcasing what you're doing, you're showcasing the endemic brand, those partners who are with you. The bigger companies, Ford and Chevy, they use racing to test products that then transfer to the technology of actual vehicles. It's called transfer of technology. Non-endemic brands, this was when Old Smoky Moonshine was promoting at Lohr's back at the Lake Elsinore race. I took this photo because it looks like a 7-year-old is there buying whiskey. But that's not my son. It looks like him, but it's not. Although he was 7 about that time. So, think about it. What does a non-endemic brand want? They're not going to help you win a race. So being on the podium, I hate it when I see them holding an energy drink. Yay, I won, and I'm on the podium with an energy drink. That energy drink did not help you win. You know what? Those tires might have, the fuel might have, the oil might have, but not the drink. But what they like is they like to distribute samples and coupons. Rockstar Energy built its brand that way by giving out free samples at the races. I saw it happen. I saw it from the beginning, and then I saw it when Russ sold the business for $4 billion to Pepsi. I saw it back when it was literally just starting. They were copying Monster and Red Bull, and it was all had to do with samples, really, and then samples, and then with coupons that accompanied the samples to show them where to go buy the product. So if you're approaching an energy drink, don't approach them the same way you're going to approach a retailer or a service provider. Think about it. It's very logical, but it's also what sets those apart who raise a lot of money from sponsorship from those who don't make any money. How many times you send a deck or a proposal to somebody and then you never hear from them again? Well, it's because you're not offering them value in a way that they care about. It's because you have one deck that you sent to 50 people. When I create a deck, I create a specific deck for every company that I send it to. Doesn't take long. 80% is all the same, but that 20%, I customize it. And that's what you have to do also. The larger and the mature brands, these are interesting because this is where the money is. These are the ones that if you can get into these companies, this is where the big money is. A lot of times their goal is to lure back new customers. It's to make the brand look relevant again, because perhaps new brands, you have Ford and Chevy on the one hand, and then you have Kia and Hyundai on the other hand. Well, these new brands coming in taking market share. Well, how does Ford and Chevy become relevant again? Well, they can do it through you. They can do it through racing. They can do it through brand ambassadors. That's what a race team is when it's sponsored by somebody. You're a brand ambassador. You're an ambassador for that brand to the consumers, to the general public who potentially would use that brand. And that's your job. That's why they will pay you to be an extension of their marketing arm. That's how you make money from them. It's not because you're putting their logo on your hood, your race suit, or your helmet. That's not what gets you money nowadays. It worked 20 years ago when you were winning in the media. It doesn't work today. Today, it's about making the brand look relevant. It's about associating the brand with fun. Sometimes these bigger companies do things like sponsorship because they need a way to reward employees or VIPs or customers that they want to hook up, and hospitality is a great way. So if a brand's giving you money, create a phenomenal hospitality environment that allows them to bring their big customers in. That's one of the things that I was very good at, is bringing in customers of our sponsors so the sponsor renews because the customer did more business with the sponsor. And that's the way you want to think. This is my son, Cole. This is Will's older brother. He was at the races selling socks a long time ago. He's a young startup brand. This is the one place where you can actually sell sponsor, sell exposure, because the little, small, young companies, they do need exposure. But the problem is they have no money. So it's you get free product. A lot of people got free socks from Cole, but they never got a penny from them. So new companies, startups, they do want to generate awareness. They do want to create demand. They do want exposure. But if you want money, it's probably not the best avenue. I actually have a great story. So you see Tanner Faust in the middle, Ricky Johnson on the right. They were both wearing Zhuge socks back at the Lake Elsinore race, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And there's my son Cole on the left who was selling socks. About a week or two after this event, Cole gets a proposal in the mail from a race team that says, if you'll sponsor me, I'll put your logo on my hood, my helmet, and my race suit for $100,000. I'm telling you, my son, who was 18 or 17, 16, got a $100,000 proposal from somebody who didn't understand anything about his business. Here's a little kid in a garage that has maybe $500 worth of inventory, and a racer's asking him for $100,000. You know what? It means that the endorsements by Tanner and Ricky was working because it made the brand look a lot bigger than it actually was. And that's the value of sponsorship. That's what you can do for the brands that you represent. If you can make them look bigger than they are, then there's value to that. So before you send a deck or a proposal to anybody, understand what the company values, and then custom tailor what you're doing to that company. What I say here is, a good example is, if you're going to target a snack food or beverage, and I saw it with Slim Jim, I saw it with Rockstar, I saw it with even Red Bull and Monster, show them in your deck how you can hand out samples. Your deck should have photos, not of all your achievements and the races you're going to go to and the demographics and the regions, which everybody does that. If you do that, you're going to be just like everybody else, all other 400,000 of you. But if you show photos of you handing out samples as happy spectators and fans are walking by, well, guess what? Now when the sponsorship director is looking at that deck, they can picture their brand in your deck as part of, oh, that could be us. That's interesting. So that's the basis of this whole conversation today. I'm going to talk about decks, proposals, and pop reports. If you don't know the difference, then that's part of the problem. Most people don't even do a pop report, and that's why there's no renewals. Decks are what you use to start relationships and start conversations with brands. It's what you do to get attention. It's what you do to get somebody to look at you, and it's how you meet someone who you've never met before and how you get them interested in what you're doing. That's what a deck is. That's the only thing a deck is for. It's just your fishing. It's candy. It's eye candy. It's something that you're throwing out there to see who comes, and then once they come, all right, now you start a relationship. And as the relationship forms, then you can go towards a proposal. Think about it. You don't propose to someone you just met. You have to get to know somebody before you propose to them, right? So why send a proposal to somebody who doesn't know you and you don't know them? It's ridiculous. That's why you don't get a call back. Once you do have a deal, though, let's pretend. So proposals close deals and they sell sponsorships. That's the purpose of a proposal. That's the only purpose of a proposal. It's not a marketing tool to get attention. That's what the deck is for. The proposal is to close the deal. We're going to talk today about how to do proposals. Proof of performance reports, that's about renewals. Because you get a sponsorship year one, that's pretty good, right? It's exciting. Yeah, you got a sponsorship. But it's years 2 through 20 that have most of the money. Because the money on year one is not that much. Years 2 through 20, that's where the real value comes in. Even if this first year is free, I gave most of my good sponsorships, the big ones, away for free the first year, just to get them in so that they can see we know what we're doing and we can create value for them. Because a 20-year sponsorship, that's an income, that's a career, that's the rest of your life. Then you don't have to have a day job anymore to race. So proof of performance reports are probably more important than decks and proposals, but it's also the one thing that nobody ever does. It's more proposal over the life of a sponsorship. Let me put it that way. Decks, again, since they're just to attract attention, they can be colorful. They can be brochures. They can be PowerPoint presentations. They can be videos. Decks can be anything that captures somebody's attention. Decks are used to start the relationship. So decks are not used to sell. You capture attention so that so the sponsor will ask questions. You can have nice photos, that's great. Usually there's no marketing or no prices in a deck. Usually, I see them all the time, but that's a problem. So when you're creating a deck, if it's for a service provider, you're going to put different things in the deck than you're going to put in if it's a retail store. Different from a tech company. It's very obvious. You don't send the same deck to all brands. You customize them. Proposals, obviously because you're proposing to a specific company, it's a specific proposal. You don't have one proposal for all different brands because you don't know what that company needs. You don't know what their sales are. You don't know what you can do through your racing. So the proposal has to be extremely specific. Proposals are usually Word documents. There's usually no photos, very few photos, unless you're showing how a graphic is going to look or how a banner is going to look. If you're going to show, how you're going to, where you're going to place the logo, that could be. Proposals will list the assets and then the value that the sponsor is going to get. It's not what you need to race. It's what the value is to the sponsor. That's what you stick in a proposal. You can have, actually a lot of times in proposals, you want to be careful because in the proposal, if they accept it and you do a deal, then brands will cut and paste what you're telling them you're going to do. And they'll put that information into a Schedule A on a contract. Because if you have a real good sponsorship, any sponsorship with a real company, that's real money, where they're paying you to be part of their marketing arm and an employee in the field during the races to help them sell the brand, there's going to be a contract. You're going to get a contract that comes along with the sponsorship. And then that contract is going to say the terms of the deal and what you're going to do. And they're going to cut and paste from the proposal, stick it in a Schedule A, and that's what you're going to have to do for them. And at year end, they're going to review, did the racer, did the team do what they said they're going to do? Or did they just go to the races and send me a year-end report that says, hey, look what I did. So be very careful what you put into a proposal because it could be legally binding. Proof of performance reports, that's like the report card of the brand. It monitors the progress, but it doesn't monitor your progress. It's not how many times you won, how many times you got on the podium. It's not how good you did at the races. It's how good the brand did at the races through you. How well was the brand represented as it stood alongside you in your success, either racing or promoting or in the media? So proof of performance reports, that's what you get for the renewal. That's where the real money comes in. We already talked about that. Now let's talk about what goes into a deck. Well, I think if you can create decks that show that you are marketing for the business in a way that the business needs to raise money for itself through revenue from generating sales, whether it's sampling, data collection, you're handing things out, you want to show in the proposal that the spectators who are watching you at the races are customers of the brand. Don't show empty grandstands. You show empty grandstands in a deck, guess what? The sponsor's going to look and go, well, there's nobody there watching. Why would I sponsor this? So you want to show photos of how your team makes the brand the winner. Now, a proposal, on the other hand, again, this has the scope of the deal, when the deal ends, how long the deal is, who the people are that are going to fulfill. Do you have someone who does media? Do you have someone that the company can call when they need something? When they need tickets to go to a race to send to their customers, who do they get a hold of? Does your team give that sponsor exclusivity in a certain product category? Well, that's what proposals do. What kind of signage, what kind of banners, Jumbotron, if there is one, PA announcements. Proposal lists the details. Proposals also will show how you will include the sponsor in your marketing. And I always say, if you get money from a sponsor, you want to take about 20% of that and invest it into marketing because you're essentially part of the company's marketing department. So you want to spend money marketing that company, not just yourself or racing or buying parts. When you have a partnership with a brand, you need to think like you work for that brand. And in the proposal, you can show them how. What kind of access to content will they have? Are you going to send them videos? Will you send them photos? Are you going to collect databases or collect email addresses and create a database of potential customers for them? And again, overview of your property's marketing strategy. If you are hiring a PR person or if you have someone who does your social media, if you're doing anything in the media that's going to generate more attention, put that in the proposal. If any of you need a proposal template, you can go to meetthesponsors.com, navigate to the template area, or type meetthesponsors.com/templates, and there's a proposal that Megan Meyer, she's here in the audience. Hi, Megan. Megan created that, and I love it. It's a great proposal. It's a template that saves you from having to do the work yourself. And then in a proposal, you want to list your tangible and intangible assets. There's two types of assets in the market. You have tangible assets as a racer. Your tangible assets are what you can put a real relative dollar value next to. Let's say you get 30 seconds on CBS Sports. Let's just pretend. I know most people don't. Well, 30 seconds on CBS Sports is about $7,500 if you're going to buy a 30-second commercial on CBS Sports. So the relative value of 30 seconds on television, $7,500. Let's say you get in a magazine. The magazine's at $1,200 for a full-page ad, and you get a one-page write-up. Well, let's say it's about $1,200. You can take all of your tangible assets and you can sum them, and you can get an exact value, a relative value of what your race series is worth, your race team, what your program is worth. And then if you give that to a marketing director who shows the CFO, who talks to the CEO about why would we sponsor you, well, look, last year this racer generated $30,000, $40,000 worth of value, but they'll sell it to us for 20. We're getting a really good deal. So the relative value is extremely important. What you can provide through rate cards. If you're not sure what your racing is worth, but you got some write-ups somewhere, well, every magazine, every newspaper, every radio show, every talk show, every media outlet, TV, has a rate card to show if you were to buy commercials or ads on their program, what would it be worth? How much does it cost? Get their rate card and then use that as a relative value. If you're not sure how to create valuation, there's 3 valuation chapters in the book. It's very intense. I can't go into it today. It would take forever, but that's how you approach tangible assets. Tangible assets are easy. Tickets, they're valued at face value. If you give a sponsor 10 tickets worth $20 each, there's $200 of value. You do that 10 times in a year, there's $2,000 of value. You just gave them $2,000 of value, but you're charging them $1,000 for the sponsorship. Wow, they got a 50% discount. That's a really good sales pitch. It works. I do it all the time. It really does work. If you can show relative value that you're creating through third-party rate cards, and you can offer it to a sponsor cheaper, there's no reason they'll say no, especially if they're logical business decision makers. They always say yes to that. Some of the rest is pretty obvious. Intangible assets now these are the great ones, because let's say you're not on CBS Sports. Let's say you're not getting MAV TV time. Let's say Speed Sport 1 is not going to show you, and you're not getting any media visibility. Well, intangible assets are the assets that you can't put a price on. They're priceless, which means it can elevate the value of your program many times more than the actual tangible assets. So let's say you added up everything you've done throughout the entire season, and you can only come up with $10,000 worth of relative value of tangible assets, but you're a likable person, and you're trustworthy, and you have a good contacts, and you're a great networker, and you have a good reputation, and people, they do what you say. Well, your intangibles could be multiplied by 5 or 10 times. So your 10,000 value could easily be 50 or 100,000 to a sponsor who understands that. Remember, sponsors don't need you to sell their product. They want values from you. What can you offer that has value? Intangible assets have value, and especially when that value is priceless. So use your intangibles to boost the value of what you're offering. Differentiation among brands, if you're the only racer in the series that's promoting a certain type of product or company, man, that's huge. If you're promoting tires at a race, that's relevancy. That makes a lot of sense. So your intangible assets, they are far more important than the tangibles. You need the tangibles because that's part of your program, but the intangibles is where you make your real money. And I just put this in twice because this is really important. Don't make a proposal about you. Make it about the sponsor. It's not how much it costs you to race. It's about how much is that value to your sponsor if they had to go out into the media and purchase that media separately using the rate cards of the magazines, TV stations, podcasts, whatever. So now it gets to proof performance reports. There's 2 types. There's your post-event pop report, and then there's a year-end. Post-event are important, but it's a comprehensive year-end that's really important. And you have to generate that. You start generating the comp pop report literally on day 1. The day you sign that contract is a day that you start creating the data that goes into your comprehensive year-end report. Every time you race, everything you learn, everything you do, it needs to be written down, compiled, and it's going to go into your comp year-end. And I want to explain how that works. Your post-event proof performance reports, that's you telling your contact at the company what you did and what you thought about it. Try to keep it a paragraph to a page, definitely no more than one page. It's not about, I won and turn 3 was hard and I got bumped and I got blah, blah. No, it's about, what did you learn from that? Well, we tried to give out samples, but it was a day when they had a deal on X, so the samples, nobody cared. We tried to hand out energy drinks, but they're all old ladies in the audience, they don't drink energy drinks. Or we tried to sign autographs, but the sun was behind us and everybody's face, and nobody was looking at us because we were on the wrong side of Bender Row. What did you learn? And then show the business that you're thinking like a business person of that business, and you're gonna then improve the next time around. Your post-event pop report is the way that you show your sponsors that you know what you're doing and you're thinking on their behalf, and you don't always have to be right, you don't always have to win, you don't always have to be perfect and market the brand by giving out all their stuff, but what you do want to do is show them that you've thought about what you can do better next time. And that way it shows them that you're working for them and you're thinking about them. Keep them sweet, keep them short and sweet, and remember, all the proof performance reports are not about how well you did, it's about how well the brand did. Now your comprehensive year-end report, this is the important one because anything and everything that you did, every single media mention, every article you were in, every time someone wrote about you, every photo, if you can find it, search it on Google, stick it in a spreadsheet, every single possible thing you did for that company, that goes in your comp year-end, because I guarantee the CEO and the CFO are not watching your races. I guarantee it, no offense. They're not watching anybody's races. You have to show them what you've done. But what you want to do is you need to give the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer, something that he can take to the Chief Financial Officer that says, we think this was a really good investment. Look at all this stuff that this team did for us. You have to give them something that they can sell to those people who are making those decisions. And that's what a comprehensive year-end report does. What I've learned over the years is that if you have no year-end pop report, you get that first year, and then it dies. You don't get a renewal. And I actually have a story on that. It's kind of a bummer story, but back in the core days, no, this was with Lucas Oil actually, back in the days, I got a Tonka team, 100 grand once. It was a Tonka Pro 2, no, Pro 4, Pro 2 did well. The Tonka Pro 4, I got him $100,000 from Tonka, and he did great. He raced. He actually did really well that year. He was in a lot of media, he kicked ass, but the marketing director was let go from Tonka right as the season ended, and she was gone. Kathy was her name. And the new marketing director came in. He knew nothing about what had happened that prior year. And my team did not keep a pop report. And since there was nothing compiled to show the new marketing director what he had done, even though he had a phenomenal year, probably added $500,000 of value to their $100,000 investment, they didn't renew. And it was a shame. It was a real bummer. All they had to do was, after every race, take 30 minutes, put everything in a binder, save it or digitize it, and then send it to the company at the end. So there's a couple things before I end here, and I'll take questions. Before you send anything out, realize that there's different types of companies. Not only are there different types like retailers, service providers, but you have German companies, you have Japanese companies, you have American companies, and each one might have a different year end. So March 31st tends to be a popular year end for a lot of Japanese companies. Sony, Toyota, think about the Japanese brands. So if their year end is March 31st, when are they going to make their budget decisions? Probably the 60 days prior to that, right? So prior to March 31st, or prior to 60 days before that, is when they need to make a decision. By then, you should have already had the relationship in place and sent them a proposal. If you're approaching Kawasaki or Honda, or let's say Toyota on April 1st, it's too late. Their new fiscal year already started. Their budget's already done. You have to wait 12 months. Timing is everything. A lot of retailers in the United States, people think that December 31st is fiscal year for all American companies. Not true. Retailers always give 30-day allowances for returns. So you still have until the end of November if you want to get into Target or Walmart or one of those companies. Anything that's an Army contractor, if they supply the military with any kind of product or service, they usually cater their fiscal year to military year end. That's September 30th. So it's never too late to raise money if you know the company's year end that you're trying to raise money from. And even more importantly than that, is the company a franchise or is it a COCO? COCO is company owned and company operated. So those are the big companies that, like In-N-Out Burgers, owned by one person. She owns the whole business. Whereas Subway, 7-Eleven, they're franchises. You can buy a Subway franchise. So when you send that Subway franchise, like somebody sending my son a proposal for $100,000, you're sending it to a small independent business owner who probably doesn't have the money. A lot of these companies do have corporate budgets. I've never been able to tap into one. So you could try, but I've never been successful, so it might be a waste of time. Good luck getting into a franchise corporate budget. I haven't figured out the trick. If you guys figure it out, please tell me. But I do find that if you want local regional money, you can get the local regional franchises. Chick-fil-A is a pretty good one. They typically don't hand out a lot of money, but you'll get coupons for free meals or discounts. And then those coupons can go quite far into you giving them out, get some more people into your pits. You show your pits are more active. You get photos of how active your pits are with more spectators. And that has other sponsors looking, going, oh, look at all those people there. I want to market through them. So there's a lot of benefits to doing it right. I'm going to entertain questions because that's usually the longest part of these presentations. People always have questions. I'm going to do another sponsorship summit next month. It's the Motorsports Sponsorship Summit on January 7th. I'm going to try something. I decided a couple days ago I'm going to try something totally new. And I'm doing a PRI special. The summits are $147, but for the next 2 days, it's only $47. If anybody wants to join, type PRI special. If you want to know what it's about, check out motorsportsummit.com. If you are interested, for the next 2 days until Saturday, tomorrow night, it's only $47. And I want to say thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm going to open it up to questions. Do we have a microphone? Okay. Microphone's in the back. Lots of hands in the back. Okay. He has the microphone. We have questions in the front also.
Hey, how you doing today?
Hey,
my name's
well,
Scott.
Thank you for coming.
Hey, thank you. You've given us some great information. For smaller teams, in your opinion, is it better for them to be incorporated in terms of like your relationship with the businesses and whatnot?
Incorporation is, the reason you incorporate is to limit your personal liability in the event of some kind of a disaster. So yes, always incorporate. Because if you run over somebody, and also some sponsorships, some sponsors may want you to incorporate to protect yourself, but also to buy insurance. In fact, every sponsor is going to ask that every big sponsor will ask that you buy insurance that protects them from any liability in case you do something. Yes, you do want to incorporate, whether it's a small or large team. I'm not a lawyer, so it's just common, just what I think. I don't know where the microphone went, but, oh, anybody you want, whoever you're close to. There's one there, some up here.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Quick question. So you talked a lot about having Lucas Oil, a very big organization. Do all of these rules and tips still apply for my small race team that's local, Midwest only?
Yes, but when you're a smaller race team, the trick is to start small and grow. All my big sponsorships started small. In fact, when Lucas Oil sponsored Carl Rennezetter, it was a product deal to start with. After 20 years, he was getting $900,000 a year from Lucas. You start regional. So instead of going to Ford corporate, go to your local Ford dealer. And instead of going to Target corporate, go to your Target dealer. Start local if you're local. Yes.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Hi.
So I get that there are ways to secure sponsorships, but one of the sponsors we've got is actually a larger company. I'm not going to go into names, but because they're such a large company, they always offer typically like 3 tiers of partnerships up to certain levels. And other than a pop report at the end of the year, before I go to NPMC next month in California to meet with him again.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that.
How do you crack that nut to kind of customize that in someone? Like, what tips would you have to say, well, I'd kind of like to do this here and this there and not just kind of go with your standard fare?
What industry is the brand in? What industry are they in? Sorry, somebody just had, they're in the automotive industry, and then, I guess I didn't understand the question because if you're offering 3 tiers or they're offering 3 tiers?
They're offering 3 tiers.
They're offering 3 tiers of sponsorship to potential racers or potential brand ambassadors.
Right.
Take the smallest one, get your foot in the door. Once your foot is in the door, if you're good at what you do, you're gonna stay a long time and it's gonna grow. But if you shoot for the largest tier sponsorship and you don't perform, guess what? They're not going to renew. Again, the renewals are the most important thing. Years 2 through 20 is what you're shooting for, not year 1. Give away year 1 for free. Most of my better deals, year 1 was for free or was really small. The only one time it didn't work is when I gave Home Depot 4 events, and then the following year the race series closed. So, bummer. I hate it when that happens. But I thought that was going to be a really big one. It wasn't. It was a freebie. Thanks.
So I own a series, a sprint car series. So when you're looking to get into a company, how do you figure out who to talk to and how to market with them? I mean, there's I've tried LinkedIn. Because some companies are online only. Some of them, they're nowhere near close to us. How do you get in the door to that market in person?
So I'm glad you said that, because that's a question I've been getting a lot lately, and I realized in my 2 prior summits, I didn't have anything on networking, because networking is key, and networking is a trick. I write a lot about networking in the book. When you come to an event like SEMA and PRI, you don't want to network with the people behind the booth who are trying to sell to their customers during the trade show, because they're busy and they're not paying attention, and they're getting 50,000 marketing documents that they're not going to take on the plane home with them. They might put it in the pallet and it might get thrown away back at the company. But I'll tell you what, if you come a day early and help them set up the booth, or stay a day late and help them break down, or if you meet them at the Slippery Noodle afterwards at a bar, that's how you network. Events like this, I see at least 6 sponsors in the room. I could ask you to raise your hands, but I guarantee they won't. But happens every time. Yeah, I know. So if you know who your spectators are and the fans that come to your events, you can match that to companies. And Facebook and Google have lookalike audiences. If you have an email address of all the racers in your series, and you can collect email addresses of all the spectators who come to your events, you can actually give those email addresses to Google and Facebook, and they can generate lookalike audiences from their database of billions and come up with ideal partners for you. So technology allows us to do that now. You have to know who your spectators are, and then you have to know who the customers are of the brands that you're targeting. That's really important as the match. But there are a lot of race fans out there, and I can tell you, they all eat, they all buy clothes, they all drive cars, so there are certain companies that are a no-brainer. That would be the approach I would use. And in terms of networking, there's going to be an entire session next month at the Motorsports Summit on networking. I haven't done it before, I just didn't think about it, but I've been asked that many times, so I have a few professional networkers who are going to run that.
And that's going to be an online thing?
It's online. It's virtual. It's online. You can log in from anywhere. If you can't afford it, send me an email. I'll send you a free pass. Everybody should watch this. If you can't afford it, it helps us if people can purchase the registration. But those who can't, they'll always get to watch. Yes?
Can you go into details about co-ops? Because with us,
Co-ops.
we get a lot of the actual cash value through our co-ops. But I don't know a lot of people, I didn't know about it when I first started doing sponsorships. And now it's something I think everybody should know about.
So the question was, how do co-ops fit in sponsorship? And my experience with co-ops is when a brand wants to sell into a retail store, that retail store will often say, we'll carry your product, but you got to spend X amount on marketing your product. And sometimes they'll go so far as saying, like Full Wheel Parts does this, let's say Bill Stein Shocks. You want to come into Full Wheel Parts, we'll sell your shocks, but you have to advertise in Off-Road Adventures, which is a magazine that Full Wheel Parts owns. So there's marketing co-ops that they ask you to do because they know that those people in that magazine, they're customers of theirs. Whenever you buy something at Full Wheel Parts, they get your email address, and then you get on their database to receive that magazine. So they know those are customers. So they're advertising to their customers, and they know that Off-Road Adventures, with I think at the time 800,000 readers, they know that those are customers who purchase there, so those are good customers. That's why they want to market there. Marketing co-ops are often designed because the company that's asking you to be part of that co-op knows who their customer is, and they're showing you that this is how we want to market because we know this will sell your product. I hope that answered your question.
Our co-ops were a little bit different.
Okay.
I had Honda as a sponsor, and their co-op came from for the displays for the smaller companies, that they could actually go back to Honda and regain some of their cash money from that.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm not as familiar with that, but thanks for the question. Co-ops it's very common. In fact, the way that I got it was $100,000. Makita was once the official power tool of CORE, Championship Off-Road Racing, and that came because of a co-op that Makita had with Rockstar Energy. So think about this. This is great. This is a lesson I learned. It was pretty interesting. When Makita salesmen were going to construction sites, trying to get construction workers to use their power tools, you got workers, creating buildings, and then they're up on the scaffolding and they're working, they're busy. So you got a salesman down here, hey, come try my tool. The guy's like, no, I'm busy, I'm working. So then they partnered with Rockstar Energy. So now Makita rolls up and they pull out 5 cases of Rockstar Energy drink. Hey guys, free energy drinks. Work stops, everybody comes down, grabs a drink. That's a brilliant marketing co-op. Those types of co-ops, when the two brands, especially when they have nothing to do with each other business-wise, but they share the same customer, when you can create those types of co-ops, they work really well. There's a question in the back.
Hi, Alex. Okay, so I drag race motorcycles professionally, and my goal is to get
nice.
to NHRA Pro Stock Motorcycle. So my question to you is, how do you get sponsors on the lower level, like in the 2 series that I race in? And how can you get them there and carry them over to where you're trying to go on that higher end?
So I would start regionally. Start wherever the races are located. There's probably a handful of businesses that are around the track people who go to a racetrack might travel up to an hour, hour and a half there. So you look at a map and you look an hour and a half from the track, what are the businesses? Find the biggest businesses, market to those businesses, and offer them hospitality, offer them tickets, offer them a way to come to watch your races with their customers because you're there entertaining. As a racer, you're trying to race to win. It's your business. That's what you want to do. You want to win. But for the sponsor, for the spectators, it's entertainment. They don't usually care who wins. They just want to have a good time. They want to enjoy themselves. The sponsors, for them, it's business. Yes. So if you can show the business that the entertainment of the event will get them more business from their customers because they can bring them to the small regional locations, that's how I would start. And then I would grow that.
Okay, thank you.
We have some up here. I know there's a lot in the back, but not everybody got up and walked in the back, right? Raise your hand. Oh, yes. He's going to bring you the microphone.
Just a quick question. So, the pop reports.
Yes.
I love the idea of it. How do I get it to the right person? I've won multiple national corporation sponsorship event type things, and the communication always fizzles out no matter how much I'm pushing towards them trying. I have all the pop report stuff. I have nobody to send it to by the time the year end is done for renewal.
Interesting. So when you say you have a pop report, do you already have a sponsorship, or are you going to send your pop report as a deck to potentially meet a new sponsor?
I already have the sponsor, and I'm looking to send them the pop report at the end of the year to renew for the next year, show them what we've done for them. But the problem is the communication has died off throughout the year because it's a multinational corporation that just kind of fizzles out on it and doesn't care.
Yeah, so what I've often done, and that happened to me many times, you have a marketing director that's really hot, and everything's going great, and all of a sudden, they ghost you, and you don't know what happened. So what I'd use is, remember the values. What does the company want? Company wants sales. So what I often do is I go to the salespeople first. Because a good salesperson who wants to generate more money, because often the sales are commission-based, they will have an incentive if your program helped them raise money to encourage their marketing department to renew. So I've gotten several sponsors. I did it through VP. I got to know Bruce Hendel real well. He's a really good friend of mine now. He runs all sales of VP Racing Fuels. I got to know him, and he introduced me to Ben Dolan, who's the VP of marketing. So I use sales to get to marketing when that happens. Because the salesman knows that you're not trying to sell the salesman anything, because that's not their job. But if they see that what you have is valuable, they'll give it to their partners at the business in marketing.
Thank you.
It's a great question. And it happens a lot. Don't feel bad that, they don't call back. It happens all the time.
Howdy, Johnny Vinti with Bankrupt Motorsports. We race American Rally Association and NASA Rally Sports. So in those types of racing events, we're at a disadvantage in terms of like assets with like screen time or, grandstands, how many people come out, because our races span, 50, 60 miles throughout the day. Yep. So in this kind of situation and scenario, if you could in your opinion, what are the top 3 tangible assets for us and intangible assets, since we don't bring people to one location?
So I'll word it a little differently. Instead of the top 3 assets, I'm going to say something that's going to drive half of you guys crazy. You don't even have to race to get a sponsor nowadays. You just have to be able to create good content that has value to the sponsor. Your racing is the credibility. It's it makes you legitimate. It's the backbone, it's the foundation of your marketing and what you're going to do. But you don't have to race to get a sponsor. You have to create content for that sponsor. So think about what kind of content today. And that's why I said COVID changed everything. This has only been this way for a couple of years now. 20 years ago, it was all about racing, winning, and getting on the podium. Today, you don't even have to race to create good media and drive traffic to a sponsor and create customers for that sponsor. Today, we live in a world, I've said this a few times, a lot of you guys have heard this, we live in a world where there's an electronic highway that connects every company's front door to every consumer's front door. And every one of us is connected electronically, every single one of us. But we're separated by doors, Your job is to open those doors. If you can open a door on the electronic highway that leads from a company to a customer, you don't even have to race to open that door. You just have to somehow open that door through compelling content. Then the company can sell directly to the customer. They know how to sell to their customers. That's why they're in business.
Yeah, so we're
You don't have to sell for them. You just have to create that relationship.
So is that, in disguise, your answer, social media content? Is
I highly recommend. And not just social, but media in general. It can be social media, and it could be media that's not Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, but media that you create, that you put online, which is on websites, it's in news stories, it's in articles. People share it through social. So any type of electronic media, yes, that's how I would do it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Alex. Can you address the importance of tapping into your warm markets maybe first and leveraging relationships and it's all about who knows somebody that can introduce you possibly?
Most of my better sponsorship deals were all from relationships. And sometimes it doesn't even come from knowing the person or the department in marketing, but maybe knowing their neighbor, their friend, their spouse, their child. I've gotten to know big decision makers by getting to know their families first. So I think that's a huge one, yes. What you're saying is you're right. The hardest part about sponsorship is meeting the person in the first place. How do you do that? Networking is not easy. But once you meet someone in person, even if it's just for an hour or half an hour, you kind of get to know them a little bit. And then that second meeting is far more comfortable. I get a lot of text messages, I get a lot of phone calls, I get a lot of emails, and I'll tend to read those first from those people I've actually met in person. So get to know them in person if you can. And then you don't have to meet them direct, try to meet them through somebody. Did that answer the question? I think so, okay. Yes, up front.
Is there a way we can actually get a copy of the slides, as a matter of fact?
Yes. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll try to post the slides to my website. I have the website, alexstrahler.com. This is scratching the surface. The books are over here. It looks like there's maybe 5 or 6 left. We brought 50. Everything's in the book as well. And like I said, the book proceeds go to my son for his college funds. Thank you for everybody. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
Thank you.